Need some help around the house? Well, this one is just for you. Employment and Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi is expected to increase the minimum wage for domestic workers to the national minimum wage. This would raise the pay of the nearly 1 million South Africans employed in private homes around the country. They would get a 23 Rand an hour, a first ever fee, instead of the 19 Rand that they currently get, or 3,700 Rand a month. Now, employment lawyer Sherisa Rajah joins us now to look at the rights that both domestic workers and the employers need to take note of. Many thanks for your time this morning, Sherisa. No doubt an important milestone for domestic workers who were really still at the bottom of the barrel when it came to minimum wage. That obviously looking to change, but some would argue that it's way long overdue.
I would entirely agree with that. If you look at when the national minimum wage legislation came into being, domestic workers were only put at 88% of that threshold. So their equalization with other workers now to get at least a decent living wage, or what we've defined in the country as a decent living wage, is by far long overdue. It actually needs to carry some level of impotence in relation to monitoring, enforcement, and penalties for non-compliance.
No, absolutely. What about issues around affordability? With the minimum wage increasing, employers might find it difficult to hire a domestic worker, and surely there needs to be a better way of navigating that. How do you foresee that playing out?
So in most of our legislation, we do create room for exemptions in exceptional circumstances. If you think about sector agreements where we bargain collectively, we allow employers to make application that we can then consider for maybe exemption for a fixed period, etc. And that might be something that would be equitable in the current economic circumstances of the country. But to exclude a group of, we've identified 900,000 or thereabout that are employed, but we also know from Stats SA, I mean, in preparation for this interview, I read from Economic Justice, quoting Stats SA, saying that 1.3 million domestic workers sit in our informal sector. So I think that to say that these people should be categorically excluded ad infinitum would be abhorrent in the circumstances of our country.
Right. And another important milestone in the labour laws in this regard, Sherisa, is the fact that employers are now obliged to include domestic workers in UIF. Domestic workers can claim if they are injured at work. All of these developments very important in this particular landscape, especially because so many people are employed in the sector.
Absolutely. I think that the registration for unemployment insurance is something that is a right that comes from our association with the ILO, the International Labour Organization. And I think that considering that the introduction of this increase may likely result in redundancies, I think that the UIF protection must definitely be in place. And that requires aggressive monitoring so that we don't cascade this into a bigger problem and just ultimately shift that